Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Hey Alexa. Today I'm talking to Hannah Chaddha, Big Brother 23. She's 1/6 of the cookout. She's from Chicago, Illinois, a master's student, and also, just like me, an avid Bravo fan. Hey Hannah, how are you?
I'm good, Alexa. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks so much for coming on and talking with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm
Of
really
course,
happy.
of course. Well, thank you. So how does it feel to kind of be back to real life from being on Big Brother, and then you guys were doing all the traveling for Big Brother point 5 to point 7?
Okay, let's see. Um, Coming out of the house was unique for me just because myself and a couple of us stayed at Todrick Hall's house for like 2.5 weeks. So that was a really nice transitional period in the sense that we still had our phones and we could still leave whenever we wanted, but we were able to be around each other 24/7 and kind of uh hold each other's hands as we were making that adjustment back. So that was really good and healthy for me. And then I came home, and that was kind of strange just to be back in my bed, back in my house, being around my parents again after not being in contact with them for like 3 months virtually. Um, so yeah, I'm still making that adjustment back. I think from talking to BB alum, it sounds like it's going to take maybe 6 to 8 months for me to feel completely normal again. But also, my life is just never going to be the same. So it's all about finding that balance between
Yeah,
reacclimating back to your old life, but then also accepting the fact that you'll never quite get your old life back all the way, if that makes sense.
oh, it makes total sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I've obviously never experienced it, but I can only imagine. Like,
hmm
but maybe it's a better life. Who knows? A little bit of both.
Yeah, that's TBD. I only went on the show not because I wanted to get into reality TV, but just because I love and respect the game of Big Brother so much. And so I had a blast every single second that I was in the house. And now that I'm off the show, this whole like post show
Yeah,
experience reaffirmed for me that I'm meant to be in school, that I'm meant to become a doctor. And the world of reality TV just isn't for me. The world of like social media influencing just isn't for me. Um, but I don't, that house is just so weird. In my head, it feels like I was never there. But then there's also like 4 months, there's like a 4 month chunk of time that's just missing from my brain in terms of like pop culture and
right.
uh, news and current events. And then whenever I'm like retelling experiences from the house, it almost feels like I'm retelling them based on what I watched and not based on like me living them personally. And then you're restricted for so long. You can't sing, you can't leave. You only have access to the backyard 1 to 3 days a week. Like
Yep.
it just really messes with your mind, not having that contact with the outside world. And then them being like, okay, bye. Have a nice life. Have fun.
Right. It's like you don't get that like step in between. It's
Which
like
I
you,
mean,
you
yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, it's just like somehow you in a way you don't really get that like step in between. It's like you're just being flown one way and flown the next. It's like,
Essentially, I mean, thankfully, a few of us got to stay with Todrick for a couple weeks. And like I said, that really helped me at least. But the rest of us didn't. So I can only imagine how much harder that adjustment was for them and probably still is. Like we're all still adjusting. And because you're in that house with no phones, no technology, no distractions, you're just with each other 24/7, you really form, and it almost like, yes, you're playing a game on CBS, but when you're in that when you're in that environment, you become so immersed in that game that it really does start to feel like life or death. So you're depending on these people for survival. You're trusting these people with your life in the game. And I think that kind of translates into a codependency after the show. Like I feel very attached to them. I talk to them every day. I feel very dependent on them. And that's strange for me because I've never been that way. So I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, happening to me. And that's why we keep doing these meetups because we just
Miss each
love each.
other.
Yeah, and we miss each other a lot.
How is it coming? Like, so once you were out of the house, like
Mhm.
going from literally no communication, anybody else, like no phones, no distractions. Do you like miss that sometimes?
Yes, I mean, that's kind of how I was before going into the house.
Okay.
It cut people off, but right before BB, I was studying for the MCAT and I ended up taking my MCAT like the week before I left, or like a week and a half before I left. And then I had finals throughout all of that. So I for like the 4 or 5 months before I left, I was just like locked in my room studying day in and day out. And then I would watch BB, but I wasn't on my phone. I didn't really have a social media presence. So that part of the house for me was not challenging. Um, it was more so like not being able to have contact with my family. And then also being around 15 strangers, because you have to keep in mind before actually moving into the house, we had to sequester for
Right.
11, where we didn't have our phones, didn't have technology, weren't allowed to talk to people. So to get thrown from that into being in a house with 15 strangers and everything's live and you have the lights and the cameras and productions running around upstairs and you're competing, it was a lot for me. Like my anxiety was definitely through the roof for the first like 4 days, to the point where I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I was shaking all the time. I had nervous breakdowns and anxiety attacks every morning. Like it was bad. But eventually I got used to it. And then after a while, I just couldn't imagine not living around those faces.
Right.
Yeah.
I can only imagine like how hard the first, at least the first couple of days for sure, because like you said, you don't know anybody. I
Hmm.
mean, you're just getting to know everybody. You don't have that the people close to you. You
Hmm.
don't have your stuff that like maybe at home that wouldn't help you.
Yeah. And I mean, the crazy thing is, I felt like other people had a pretty good handle on their anxiety. Like other people were able to start playing the game right away, were able to start forming those connections right away. With me, I felt like I could not play the game for the first week just because there was so much going on up here that I kind of had to nurture and take care of first before I could be like, okay, hi, my name is Hannah. I'm here to play. Uh, yeah. So it's just interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And then you didn't tell anybody that you were a master student going into um, med school. Were you
Mhm.
like afraid that you were gonna like accidentally like spill it one day, like just not thinking or
No, I like when I walked into that house, I walked in as a character.
okay.
Um, so I'd say that my house guests, they know who I am on a fundamental level. Like they know where my heart is. They know they what do they know about me? I know that I'm a kind person and they know my sense of humor for sure. And they know that I care about them and I care about people. I'm an empath, which is something that I've learned throughout this whole experience. But they don't like, they never got to know Hannah, the student. They never got to know Hannah, the woman who's aspiring to be either an anesthesiologist or a psychiatrist, which is a large part of my life. They didn't
Yeah,
get to know a dancer. So there's a lot that they missed because I was hiding everything. Except for me, like I said, I went into that house as a character. I was like, okay, I'm Hannah. I'm a 21-year-old college student studying fashion. I changed the way that I wore my hair. I changed the way that I wore my makeup, up my robe for the show. I changed up, I kind of dumbed it down in a lot of situations because I wanted them to think that I was either an idiot or that they just didn't have to worry about me. Um, so they're still getting to know me in this post show.
right.
Yeah.
It's funny because a lot of you guys all like had stuff you kind of kept to yourself this season,
Well, let's
right?
see.
There was a few people
Xavier, um, yeah, and we're still getting to know Xavier as well in this post-show era
as a
because
lawyer.
yeah, I mean, he left out like 10 years of his life going to going to law school, practicing, being a D2 athlete. Um, Big D hid the fact that he's Smoke and Joe Frazier's
Yep,
son. Um, Claire hid the fact that she was an AI engineer, although she did say that she was an engineer. She just didn't tell us
the
what
kind.
kind it was. Yeah. Brittany hid the fact that she's like a karate world champion, and then Sarah Beth hid the fact that she's a forensic chemist. So a good like 5 of us, 6 of us had secrets. Yeah. And none of us ever slipped up.
Which is pretty amazing. I feel like for me, I either wouldn't be thinking about it and I would just say it, or like I would just slip up. I don't know.
Well, that's the best thing about Big Brother is the fact that your brain has to be on 24/7. Even when you like, there was this clip where I made beans, pasta, and avocado. And people were like, oh my gosh, she doesn't know how to cook. That's so nasty. And that's true. I don't know how to cook, but that was intentional. That was strategic. I wanted them to feel like I needed them. I wanted them to feel like I was dependent on them in the house to eat, to sleep, to do this, to do that. I wanted them to really feel like I was there, um, to really feel like I was their younger sister, to really feel like I was the baby of the house. So yeah, you just have to like in everything that you do, you have to be on. And I loved getting to use my brain in that way because it was so different.
Yeah, because you're still using it. You're just not like showing it per se, but you're still using it in that way.
Yeah, you're always thinking, always. Oh my God, I loved being in that house. I loved it. I loved
Hey, maybe
see,
one day.
please ask me back. I would go back in a heartbeat. I would stop everything that I'm doing. Even if I'm in the middle of med school, I'd be like, okay, I'm free.
We're gonna manifest this for you.
Please, please, please.
So you were also 1/6 of the cookout,
Mhm.
which was truly amazing. I mean, you guys were the final six, and you guys were it was PO POC, right? POC.
No, just black people.
Oh, it
Because
was just black. That's
yeah,
right.
because
Sorry.
DX and Alyssa is Latina and they were not part of the cookout.
Right. It was just, yeah, which was so cool, like to see that and how you guys actually like work together, even when people were fighting in the
Hmm.
group. You didn't it didn't matter.
No, it's kind of crazy that all of us just walked in and we happened to be on the same page. We really wanted to do whatever it took for there to be a black winner, even if it wasn't myself. For Tiff, even if it wasn't her. For Kyland, even if it wasn't him. Um, so yeah, the fact that despite our internal differences and our very like tense, our very contentious dynamic, we were still able to put that to the side for the purpose of this greater mission. And it wasn't even a matter of let's kick out the white people or let's kick out non-black POCs. It was really just the only way for us to guarantee that there's a black winner, the only way for us to maximize the probability of that happening is to get all 6 black people to the very end. That way, no matter how the cookie crumbles, no matter how that pie is sliced, there will be a black winner. There will be 2 black people in final 2, and so on and so forth. So that's all it really was for us. It was a mission of unity. It was a mission of change and in a way, social justice and equity on a show that has not favored people who look like us for 22 seasons. So that's all it was about. It wasn't about exclusivity. It wasn't about exclusion. It wasn't about any of that. And I think where CBS kind of maybe missed the bar is they didn't give the audience any context as to why the cookout was formed.
Yeah.
They didn't really show any of that. They didn't show us talking about what it means to be black in the house, what it means to be black on a reality show, what it means to be black in America. They didn't really air any of our very vulnerable conversations that had to do with race and
Yeah.
identity. Um, So yeah, they missed the mark on that because watching the show back, they didn't do the cookout justice in the way that we were aired. It did kind of seem like, oh, let's just get the white people out. Let's just get DX
Yeah.
and out. But that's not what it was about at all.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I could see that. And it's like, I think talking about it now too in these type of conversations will help to show people that maybe didn't understand it in that way.
Yeah. I
Maybe
hope.
they understood it in the CBS way and not in the way it actually was.
Yeah, I hope so.
So,
And that,
Hannah, now that you're going now back to school, what's next for you?
what's next for me? Let's see. I'm moving to LA pretty shortly for school and for dance. So I plan on finishing up my master's, which I have 2 semesters left. I plan on pursuing dance and seeing what I can do with that out in LA. And then it's applying to med school.
Well, that's exciting.
Hmm.
What kind of dance do you like?
Hip hop.
Hip hop, that's right. I
Yeah.
thought it was, but I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, it's hip hop. That's definitely like my stress reliever.
I know I
It's
love watching you guys all like on TikTok or the different dances. Brittany's so good too.
oh good. Oh my gosh.
She's
Yeah.
incredible, and so are you, like dancing. So it's cool that you
You.
get to do both.
Yeah. I mean, I I want to keep dance in my life for as long as possible because in my career, in my education, I feel like I'm using my brain in one very specific way, like in a logical, rational, analytical way. With dance, I could just exercise my creativity and my artistic side. So having dance in my life is almost like feeding my brain.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm brain um neurologically oriented person, if you can't tell. I talk about my mind a lot. But yeah, I love dance so much and I'm really excited to be in LA and see what I can make of that while I'm out there.
That's exciting. So for your school, are you in school in LA or is it online?
No, it's in LA. I finished like a year and a half of my master's program. But because of COVID, all of that was remote, which is why I was able to
Oh,
Chicago while technically going to school in LA. But now that COVID has calmed down a bit, although it seems like it's picking back up, who
yeah.
knows what's going to. But the plan as of right now is to move out there and go to classes in person.
That'll be exciting. I'm sure
Yeah.
you probably miss it and like miss being with people.
Um, I've gotten my fair share of people. And the
That's
fact
true.
that, yeah, being like in a classroom, because I haven't physically been in a classroom since March of 2020. So
Okay.
it's been almost 2 years, like a year and 9 months. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
crazy. Like I feel so bad for these young kids that like
Mhm.
have to be like half in school, half out of school, like especially like like college, maybe it's not as hard. I used to love my online classes in
Mhm.
college, but like I couldn't imagine like elementary or even high school having to
Yeah.
do it online.
Yeah. Because like being around other children is such a formative part of elementary school and middle school and even high
Right.
school. Yeah, I agree with you.
Where can my listeners find you?
You guys can find me on Twitter at Hannah_Chaddha. You guys can find me on TikTok at Hannah_Chaddha. And then you can find me on Instagram at just Hannah Chaddha.
All right. Well, this was another episode of Hey Alexa, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.